tonight's news edition. Hundreds of thousands of opposition protesters take to the streets of Cairo demanding that Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi quit on the first anniversary of his inauguration. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry ends a Mideast shuttle diplomacy mission without any agreement on resuming Palestinian-Israeli talks, but says progress has been made. And Barack Obama pays tribute to Nelson Mandela by visiting his cell at the former prison of Robben Island and offers support to his family during a visit to South Africa. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour announced the launch of the national campaign to fight corruption for the years 2013-2017. Mansour launched the campaign at a regional workshop on enhancing the integrity of the judiciary, attended by Arab and foreign justice ministers from 13 countries. The strategy aims to create a conducive environment to strengthen a culture that opposes corruption through an administrative, legal, and media framework capable of the public and private sectors as well as civil society. In addressing the opening, Mansour said Jordan is proud of its judiciary, known for its impartiality, integrity, and sound decisions, and whose expertise has extended beyond Jordan's borders to other Arab nations. Speakers highlighted the role of an honest and fair judiciary in reinforcing democracy and as the body that preserves people's rights, guarantees the Constitution, and fights the corrupt. Jordan urged its nationals, including students in Egypt, to exercise extreme caution and stay clear of trouble spots as unrest continues to grip Egyptian cities. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriate Affairs posted emergency phone numbers and asked Jordanians in need to call them for help. The numbers of the Jordanian embassy in Cairo, their Jordanian ambassador and consul's number, as well as the Foreign Ministry Operation Room, appear on the screen. The people want the fall of the regime, chanted thousands of Egyptians in Tahrir Square again today. This time not against an aging dictator, but against their first elected leader, who first took office only a year ago to the day. Egyptians poured into the streets of Cairo, swelling crowds that opposition leaders hoped would number into the millions by evening to persuade President Mohamed Morsi to resign. A sit-in outside the palace was also planned starting this evening. Luay Balqar has the story.
The protests came on the first anniversary of Egypt's first elected president, Mohamed Morsi, following the overthrow of Hosni Mubarak. Thousands of opponents and supporters gathered in Cairo and other cities for what were expected to be the largest protest so far. Tahrir Square was filled again with protesters, calling for the president to step down and for early presidential elections to be held. Several people have been killed so far in clashes between rival protesters in the week building up to today's demonstration, which the opposition has billed as a decisive day that will lead to Morsi's downfall. The opposition is vowing not to leave until Morsi steps down.
The people who put Morsi in power are the same people who are protesting against him. The people have expressed their opinion in all public squares. All of them are saying no, no to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Activists said more than 22 million people have signed a petition seeking a snap election and urged people to come out on Tahrir Square. On the other side of Cairo, many of President Mohamed Morsi's supporters who were taking to the streets in counter demonstrations throw their support behind Morsi's legitimacy. The supporters gathered and assembled outside the presidential palace and called on the opposition to withdraw their calls for protests because the president was elected legitimately by the will of the people.
بقول يا سيادة الدكتور I would like to tell him to keep moving forward on this same path. The Egyptian people have given you legitimacy, and we are all here to support this legitimacy.
Army troops backed by armored vehicles and tanks were deployed at the entrance to Cairo airport and to important spots to the east and west of the city, such as the State TV building, the Suez Canal, the cabinet offices and parliament. President Mohamed Morsi declared this weekend that he is still very confident he will serve out his term as Egypt's first democratically elected head of state. But he also offered to revise the new Islamist-inspired constitution, saying clauses on religious authority which fueled liberal resentment were not his choice. Loeb Alqar for the news at 10.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry ended a shuttle diplomacy mission without an agreement on resuming Palestinian-Israeli peace talks, but said real progress has been made during his visit. State Department officials said he left a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister at 4 a.m. today before going back to Ramallah for more talks with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. We get more in this report.
Speaking at a news conference before his departure from Tel Aviv, Kerry said progress was made during this trip, the fifth to the Middle East so far. He told reporters he would return to the region soon.
Pleased to tell you that we have made real progress on this trip, and I believe that with a little more work, the start of final status negotiations could be within reach. We started out with very wide gaps, and we have narrowed those considerably.
Over 4 busy days, Kerry met Israeli and Palestinian leaders repeatedly and separately to try to find a formula for reviving direct negotiations. He said both Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas had asked him to return to the area soon, adding that this is a sign that they share his cautious optimism.
We're not going to get stuck with artificial deadlines. That's a big mistake. As I just said to you, I'm leaving people here who will continue to work on some of this, and they've asked me to return in the near term.
In the West Bank city of Ramallah, Palestinian chief negotiator Saeb Erekat said there has been some progress in the 3 sessions of talks between Kerry and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, but not a breakthrough. Erekat said he would hold further meetings with U.S. representatives to follow up on some issues raised during the Kerry visit.
We want to resume negotiations. We don't have any conditions on this. When we say Israel must accept 2 states or 1967 lines, when we say Israel must stop settlement activities, when we say Israel must release prisoners, these are not Palestinian conditions. These are Israeli obligations.
Abbas has demanded a halt in Israeli settlement expansion in the West Bank and East Jerusalem before negotiations could resume. Palestinians are also seeking the release of scores of long-serving Palestinian security prisoners by Israel as a goodwill gesture. But Netanyahu believes the issue should be addressed only after talks resume. However, he told his cabinet after 6 hours of overnight talks with Kerry that Israel is prepared to enter into negotiations without delay, without preconditions, and that it is not placing any barriers on the resumption of final status talks on a permanent peace agreement with the Palestinians. For new talks to be held, Abbas has said Netanyahu must also recognize the West Bank's boundary before its capture by Israel as the basis for the border of a future Palestinian state. Zain Abu Sufa for the news at 10.
Over to Syria, government forces pounded the city of Hims as heavy explosions and white clouds of smoke rose across its streets. Videos uploaded to the internet showed buildings coming under attack with explosions going off in the besieged district of Hama, while gunfire exchange continued between Syrian troops and rebels. Government forces launched a major offensive yesterday against rebels in Hims in their latest drive to secure an access connecting Damascus to the Mediterranean. Syrian state media said the army was achieving great progress in Khalidiyya, but the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said there were reports that rebels destroyed an army tank as troops tried to penetrate the old city in the center of Hims. Croatia becomes the 28th member of the European Union at midnight tonight. Among some of the foreign dignitaries who arrived in Zagreb for the official ceremony marking Croatia's accession to the EU is a strong European Union delegation, including President of the European Mission, President of the European Council, and President of the European Parliament. Croatia joins the bloc just over 2 decades after declaring independence from federal Yugoslavia, a step that triggered 4 years of war in which 20,000 people died. The country of 4.4 million people is one of 7 that emerged from the former Yugoslavia during a decade of war in the 90s. Slovenia was first to join the EU in 2004, while Serbia, Bosnia, Macedonia, Montenegro, and Kosovo are still years away. The meeting will also be used to pass the post of the 6-month EU presidency from Ireland to Lithuania. U.S. President Barack Obama and his family on a visit to South Africa paid tribute to Nelson Mandela at the former prison of Robben Island, where Mandela was once an inmate. Obama was later expected to cite the legacy of Mandela, who continues to be hospitalized, in a speech at the University of Cape Town. Yesterday, rather than visiting the ailing Mandela in hospital, Obama visited his family to offer support. We get more with Alia Touqan.
Former South African President Nelson Mandela was held in prison in Robben Island off South Africa for 18 years of the nearly 30 years he was jailed. On the final leg of his South African tour, Barack Obama and his family paid a visit to Robben Island, which is now preserved in searing tribute to the sacrifice and unbreakable strength of the anti-apartheid leader who now lies critically ill in hospital. Current South African President Jacob Zuma was also held at this jail under the apartheid regime. Obama visited Mandela's cell, and the guide with the first U.S. family, a former inmate and anti-apartheid activist, spoke about his time there with Mandela and other African National Congress prisoners. Obama is due to deliver a speech later today at the University of Cape Town. His speech will echo the Day of Affirmation address given at the same location in 1966 by Robert Kennedy, who compared struggle to overcome apartheid with the U.S. civil rights movement. Wrapping up the tour of the island, Obama and the first U.S. lady signed a guest book in which he wrote, "On behalf of our family, we're deeply humbled to stand where men of such courage face down injustice and refuse to yield. The world is grateful for the heroes of Robben Island, who remind us that no shackles or cells can match the strength of the human spirit." The example of Mandela, South Africa's first black president, drew Obama into politics for the first time in the 70s, putting him on a path that would make his own piece of history as America's first African-American president. Alia Touqan for the News at 10.
Back here at home, the government has announced new fuel prices effective as of tomorrow. After meeting with the Fuel Pricing Committee today, Minister of Trade and Industry and Minister of Communication and Information Technology Hatem Halawani said a decision was taken to modify the prices of fuel products. The new rates will take effect as of tomorrow and will continue until the 30th of July. In accordance with the committee's recommendations, 1 liter of unleaded 90-octane gas is to go up from 765 fils to 785. 1 liter of 95-octane gas is to go up from 930 fils to 950. Prices of both diesel and kerosene will go up to 645 fils from 635. The price of cooking gas will remain unchanged at 10 JDs per cylinder. The government attributed the increase to a recent rise in international oil prices. The National Industrial Exhibition for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises opened in Amman today. Deputizing for His Majesty the King, Minister of Industry and Trade and Minister of Information and Communications Technology Hatem Halawani inaugurated the exhibit, which runs for 2 days. The Supporting Made in Jordan campaign exhibit aims to promote Jordanian industries and to increase consumers' confidence in national product. Small and medium-sized enterprises form 97% of Jordan's industrial sector, with investments reaching 5 billion dinars. The number of SMEs in the kingdom currently stands at 12,000, providing around 180,000 job opportunities. Annual exports of SMEs is estimated at 3 billion dinars, while their contribution to the gross domestic product stands at 55%. Jordanian national products are sold to 1 billion consumers in more than 120 countries. Security was tight around the Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro ahead of tonight's Confederation Cup final between Brazil and Spain. The massive protests that paralyzed Brazil over the last weeks were expected to peak this evening. Demonstrators hope to use the final game to emphasize their message to the country's shaken political establishment that is needed to change its ways. A 2-meter square perimeter security zone has been set up around the stadium. Ironically, a survey showed 8 of 10 Brazilians say they are in favor of protest, yet they support the Confederation Cup at the same time. Reigning World Series champion Gary Hunt of Great Britain won the Azore cliff diving event, the third round of the 2013 World Series. Hunt executed a final round dive of a front somersault with 1.5 twists to earn the day's highest score. But it was his overall score of 481.05 that earned him the victory. In second place was Colombia's Orlando Ducwo, and in third, Jonathan Paredes of Mexico. The cliff diving series travels to Lake Garda in Italy in 2 weeks' time.
Este público magnífico está a fazer ruído fantástico. O que é que achas? Opa, nós temos sempre fazer assistir esta grande competição. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Não, isto não é nada disso. É mesmo.
And finally, for a quick look at the weather. Fair conditions continue tonight in most regions with northwesterly moderate winds. Tomorrow, a slight drop in temperatures expected, but normal summer conditions prevail with a high of 28 degrees Celsius in the hilly areas. Winds will be northwesterly moderate, picking up in the afternoon and blowing dust in the desert areas. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect hot weather tomorrow with a maximum of 36, northerly moderate to brisk winds and slightly high seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. Hundreds of thousands of opposition protesters take to the streets of Cairo, demanding that Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi quit on the first anniversary of his inauguration. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry ends a Mideast shuttle diplomacy mission without any agreement on resuming Palestinian-Israeli talks, but says progress has been made. And Barack Obama pays tribute to Nelson Mandela by visiting his cell at the former prison of Robben Island and offers support to his family during a visit to South Africa. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.